Here we are, another day in America's breakdown. And I know it weighs heavy on many of our hearts. And watching our children through this and wondering what is going to happen. And maybe I can shed a little light from my corner of study and understanding to help you understand and see what is happening. To some degree, I believe the financial breakdown that is coming in the United States is so we neutralize and equalize things in our greater world. And while that is uncomfortable and not something that we want to see happen, it's a necessary part of us leveling out our world. I have a cat that's scratching something. I'm going to take a peek. Okay, it's an okay thing. Ooh, that So let's go to this. What I see is emotional brokenness is our world's trauma. And the reason we are traumatized this way is we didn't grow up emotionally because we didn't have equalized natural consequence, meaning a child in your family was favored, or this happened, or however it worked out. You were a great athlete in this way, so you were idealized for it, and then identified only with the athlete and became that. And then when that wasn't something happening in your life, you felt as though, I don't know, you had no equalizing point for yourself because you became that thing. And it's much greater than what I'm saying. That's just a small example. But we are emotionally not operating at a maturity level of which our full potential really we can rise to. And the reason is the missing component of natural consequence. This also can be a reason the like men in general got way into asserting control over others to the point of oppression, egregious oppression. And that really comes out of, I have a little philosophy, which I'm a little shy to share, but I've had this for quite some time, that when we think about something like God, my experience with it personally is very different than I've heard anybody explain it. And I'm not here to influence anybody. What is important is the way you relate to it, but that you aren't buying into somebody else's program of how they tell you to relate to it or how it works. You figure it out on your own through challenging it. So one of the things I learned for myself is the masculine and the feminine within the idea of what we think of as God or this higher power or this source, I might say, for how things move forward, how things expand, off of which things expand. But the masculine component of that is natural consequence. And it's interesting that the people who are, as I really think of it as, are creating terror. They are terrorists against their own people, the United States nationals, that they are in a case where they are taking that into their own hands and they're being above what is natural to us and controlling it and asserting that control in a way that does not serve them or us. And I say, let's collapse narcissism together is my tagline, because in truth, it serves no one. And this is what we're seeing is this narcissistic, I'm going to be a little tough here, but even saying, I hold space for people, listen to my voice, okay, that was a little catty, is self-important. If we're in our knowing, we're with ourselves, we would say, I showed up for a friend. Or I showed up for that class and I gave them my best. We're more low-key about it. We aren't pushing. Instead, we're asked and then we share. Instead of pushing, I'm self-important. It's the opposite of the masculine, which would be the feminine, of I'm an enabler and I need to be needed. If I'm not needed, I won't survive or I won't be okay, right? I didn't expect to go this direction in this. I really expected to go a little bit differently. So in essence, all humans need parenting. There are three tenets of what creates extraordinary disorder in us. And one of them, I'm only going to talk about one of them right now, I believe. Let's see what happens, is that we are in the US, from the way we're parented, we grow up being misunderstood. And I can just hear a man's voice saying, oh, misunderstood. And sorry, I don't mean to peg it on a man, but that might be the more critical faction of people to say that's not true. Well, when we fight it, when we're not willing to look at it, it's so true. If we're willing to look at it, we're okay with it. We're probably okay with it. But when we fight it, that's what's going on. So I want us to look at that in our own lives, is where are you fighting things? Where are you not wanting to stand up? Where are you afraid? Because right now, we need to stand up and speak out. We need to show up at the protests. We need to do the things that we know, and we need to push a little further than we're comfortable in the past doing. I have more to say on this, but I'm going to say it in another video to keep this one short. I hope that this has given you a little bit of information to think about and helped you to see how our problem is getting turned on us in a hyper arc of a contrast, that the contrast is so burdensome and so heavy, it blows apart, right? That's the potential, is that it blows apart. And it takes us fighting for what we believe is true. But when I say fighting, it really is about, well, as part of this, our world was built on disconnection, not connection. And not everywhere is that way, and not everybody is that way, but mostly that's what we experience in our world to quite a high degree. And now what we're doing is we're saying, nope, we're going to connect. So when you think about going out to a protest, or you think about speaking up, you are really doing it so that you are creating connection. And that's what ultimately is the undoing of this super insular, I am in charge, autocracy, fascist, we can call it a bunch of things, oligarchy. There were no consequences at all. And so the burden is put onto the people who had consequences, right? You were raped, and then you're told by the powers that be, you are wrong for this. It's a double victimization. And now we're getting this extraordinary victimization. And we have to stand up and say, no, that's no longer going to happen. And if it is hard for you to do that, I want you to think about getting 10 of your girlfriends that might be moms to go out and do it for their kids. If you can't do it for yourself, and that's okay. There's so many things I couldn't do for myself in my life, but I certainly would do them for my children. Do it for your kids. Bond together. Get groups of people. Do whatever you need to do, but speak out. That's what we need. All right. That's all I've got for today.